Oh, hi. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Or hello. I'm Leslie Plazz. I am your host for the Zazoo Plazz report. Today is August 22nd, 2026. So it's Saturday, and I'm doing this to post for Sunday, which is the 23rd. So just a heads up. Mercury's not in retrograde. Oh, Mercury's in Leo. Maybe that's why. I I went all in because I just did my Facebook post, and I went all in on the Catholic readings. This is how I roll here. I share a little bit of my personal stories, get my feet wet, introduce myself a little bit. So if you don't know me, you can watch any of my videos and you get a little piece of who I am, a little piece of the puzzle, you know. But um, each report is independent of the others. But if you watch them all and you put them all together, eventually you get to know me. Okay. So if you came late, I'm not gonna fill you in on everything. But if you faithfully watch me every week, you will notice that it starts to make more sense. See, because we're on this journey together. This is a spiritual journey, and I'm getting to know it's an internal journey for me. See, I'm kind of person, I'm on a secret journey, and I take you along with me. And along the way, I spout off, have a couple of Zazoo rants and retorts and things. Nothing consistent though. I don't stay on any one topic or opinion long enough to, maybe I piss people off along the way and they get stragglers, they kind of fall off. If they're not all in, they kind of fall off the edge. Um, but but I find that the real ones, I've got followers on my Facebook page. I have 233. I lost one this week. But several of the ones, they have been with me for 5 years, right? I'm getting kind of bored. The same damn people. I have a Sag stellium. I need new people. So if you want to hop on board here, get in in the early days because we're gonna take off, and you come with me, okay? So if you don't want to, don't just go, okay? I'm not gonna gild the lily or whatever. What you see is what you get on any given day. And I'm hungry and I need to go get my paleo hot chocolate because it's plant milk day and my cashew butter rice cake. I don't have any peaches. It's peach day. But I do have a plum, however. I have to have that tomorrow. Um, yeah, I bought peaches recently, but you know how when you buy them and they're hard, you knock them on the they're like hard like a brick. So I had one, I put it out and it got nice and soft, and then I put it in the fridge and got it cold. That's how I like them when they're soft enough so, they get juicy, but they're not too juicy so they get all over you. They get all over you anyway. But, and then I had one, I think it was a nectarine, which is kind of like a cousin of a peach, but not as fuzzy. And so I had one and I forgot to put it out and I wanted to have it with my oatmeal. So it was hard like a brick. I could barely slice it. And then I had the idea. I sliced it up and chopped it up and I put it in with my oatmeal in the microwave. And it kind of softened up a little bit with my oatmeal. And I was able to eat it with a little cinnamon on top. Just a tip, if you forget to put your peaches out, you can put them in the microwave, and it got all kind of nice and soft, and it's perfect sliced in some my flax oatmeal. Anyway, I did that. I do have little cucumbers forming out there, but they're the kind with the little pricklies on them. I don't think I want those. I mean, you take the skin off anyway, but I don't know. We'll see. Sun is at the very last degrees of Leo, right at the end, 29 degrees, 29, 30 degrees. Um, so the Sabian symbol for today was the unsealed letter. So, um, which it agrees with the artist of the day and the song, and it's good. Um, so, you think about the unsealed letter. It's kind of like, you know, nobody's hiding it, but you kind of feel like you're, you know, if you go over somebody's house, they've got something just lying around, you know. Um, I confess to being I'm a Scorpio. I'm very nosy and a very yeah, we make the best detectives. But, as I've gone along in my spiritual journey, I have found that I don't need to eavesdrop or do things come to me, like I can just look or think of a person and I'm getting much more, I'm exercising those muscles much more, so I can kind of get a feel about a person without knowing all the details, and I'm surprisingly accurate. So I challenge myself, to figure out, not consciously really what's going to happen, but I pull things out, and I think I scare people, because I can meet somebody and, within a few words, I kind of see right through them. My eyes bore through their soul like lasers. Oh, I love it. So let's see. The sun is conjunct the moon. No, trine the moon. The moon is at 29 of Sag, which is kind of around the galactic center. I have my Venus at 27 of Sag, which is where Lilith currently lies. Lilith is the dark feminine. So that's conjunct my Venus, and so Venus transit is opposite Saturn, Libra, on the Libra Aries axis today. Uh, yeah, so that's yeah, that's yeah, tough. it's it's hard. Oh, dude, I want to have some fun, but now I gotta work. I wanted to go out and have a day of fun. Something said, no, do your Zazoo report. Do your laundry. Okay, so here I am. Yeah, and it's, Tooth Fairy Day. Uh, so I got two stories. First, it's Take Your Cat to the Vet Day. And I was thinking about how we had these two cats, these two straight tuxedo cats. And so we got two carriers, one for each of them. And I remember when we used to have to round them up, the girl cat ran away. We lost her early when she was practically still a kitten. Maybe she was 4 or 5, 4 maybe. But the boy cat stayed, until he was like 14 to 13, 14. And then he ended up getting like a urinary tract infection, and, we had to put him down because he was not eating, and, everything was just shutting down. So, ultimately we had to bring him to the vet, and it was so sad at the end because, he just went in the carrier and lied down. He knew he was a smart cat that way. But and when they were kittens, you used to have to round them up. They'd see those carriers come up the stairs from the basement. That's where we had little cat doors installed, and they're still in the damn doors probably at Plazz HQ at my ex's house. He owns a house now. Used to be our house. Now it's his house. But we had these cat doors cut into the basement door and in the laundry room door, so the cats could go in there, in and out. I guess the laundry room was where we used to have the litter box, and then we moved it to the basement. So and we keep all the cat stuff down in the basement because, out of the way. That was our story. We had a finished basement, but then um, we had this one room it ended up being the Lego room, but it was also the cat litter room. And that's where we kept all of our cat food and our cat, not food, but the cat poop stuff and the the carriers and everything. So they would go through the cat door in the basement, down the stairs to the basement, and there was another cat door leading to the litter. So we could keep those doors shut, and the cats could just come and go. So they saw those carriers. They were these hard plastic ones with little doors that would swing out, and we'd like chase them around, try to scoop them up in the things. But what worked better was like leaving them open and then just like putting some treats in there, and and then once they went in to get the treats, then you shut the door. It was much better to try to lure them in there gently than try to shove them in, because eventually usually you get cut up or bit or something. you know Oh man, did I get it. I got scratches all over my arms, my hands, they put us through it. But I guess it was all worth it. And then after they passed, we buried their ashes under the lilac trees in the back. And then for years, the cat hair would still come. It would still come, and we deep cleaned the whole basement multiple times. With steam cleaning, and he'd go with he'd go with his nails on the carpet, and he'd get these chunks of cat hair. That would I don't think they came out of the walls or from the ceiling, or I don't know. But I think we had ghost cats because we did live on Hitchcock Way. So there you go, Hitchcock. My life is a Hitchcock movie, I swear. But more about that later. What else do we have? Jupiter and Leo. We have a lot of Leo. North Node is opposite Mercury. 29 of Aquarius. The Sun. North Node is opposite the Sun and Mercury at 29 of Aquarius. So that's interesting. And then the other story I wanted to tell was it's Tooth Fairy Day. And I said, and doing my Facebook posts is so good because I tie all these loose ends together. Check it out if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it. Not you, everybody else. He knows who he is. You know who you are. The Tooth Fairy. So it seemed to me when I was thinking about it that, my parents would the Tooth Fairy, when I was growing up, in the 70s. I started losing my teeth about 1971 to somewhere in there. Up through the mid 70s, I guess I lost my molars and all that. So the Tooth Fairy would leave me, 25 cents for a small tooth. And I think I got double for the molars. I think I got 50 cents or 75 maybe for the molars. The Tooth Fairy had a sliding scale, She definitely paid a lot less for the tiny little teeth than she paid for the bigger teeth. And then there was inflation to consider. So when we had our kids, by the time they were losing their teeth, plus there was two of them, So we paid, Tooth Fairy paid more, maybe double or triple what we got, and sometimes she'd leave, a dollar bill even or more under their pillow, which was just outrageous, but I guess that's inflation, the cost of living and everything. But yeah, she was very generous. Their tooth fairy. I had a cheap tooth fairy. Just saying. Thank you anyway. But anyway, I mean, to me, it was a lot of money. You know, I put it in my piggy bank and I saved my pennies and my quarters. What the hell is that? I thought she was out. Maybe it's the dog. Jesus. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So it, you know, I looked at the readings for today, and it said the memorial for Saturday, and I started with the readings for Saturday, not realizing that it wasn't the weekend. Tomorrow's readings are for the 21st Sunday. So what I did was I kind of, I did mostly the readings for the Queenship of the Virgin Mary Day, which is today. We used to call it Hail Holy Queen. That song, Hail Holy Queen, that was, for that concept, I guess. But Leo is all about kings and queens, so that makes sense. Plus, it was just the Assumption, like last week or something. So, she's up there and now she's on her throne. It's the whole idea of, I wasn't feeling the energy for tomorrow yet because I think we're going into Virgo and I'm not there yet. So I'm going to do the readings for this. And I'm going to throw in the gospel for tomorrow because it kind of fits with the songs that I picked. So if you got that, here we go. Yeah. So I read, but basically I read the energies, and if the energies of the readings don't fit the energy that I'm picking up right now, then I don't use them, But everything kind of has to flow. So there's a reading from Ezekiel today, 43, Ezekiel 43, where Ezekiel basically is having these visions, where there's an angel who looks like a regular man, and he's leading him to a gate, and he said at the east. So he said that it reminded him of the visions that he had by the river Chebar, which I looked it up, and it's in the east. So that's like in the Middle East, right? So like around, it was the old Babylonia, where Iraq is right now. And coincidentally, it was Norman Schwarzkopf's birthday. He was Stormin' Norman back in the Gulf War days. We remember. I remember him. So it's ironic that it's his birthday, and the reading has to do with a prophet who was in that part of the world. So this river is where the Israelites were exiled when the Babylonians were in power, I guess. And where Ezekiel had his visions, right? These series of visions. He says he sees the earth shining and the water is roaring, and he falls down and bows before God. He said God is entering through this gate at the east. But he said the Spirit lifted him up. So there's this sense in this weekend's readings of, if you humble yourself, right, you'll be exalted. And also the concept of being, the greatest among you, being servants of all, right? So in other words, the more you go in and, deal with your shadow, deal with your difficult emotions, right? The more you're going to rise, the more you're going to, be exalted and be glorified, right? See this, you're going to get more downloads. In other words, the more you work on yourself, right? Instead of, living superficially and externally, and one of the ways to do this, Leo is all about creation. So through creation, through writing songs, through raising children, having and raising children, through, performing through whatever it is that, that's your thing, then this is how um, you come to know, how you feel, that your emotions come through your work, right? So that's kind of the vibe. So he said the spirit lifted him up. He goes to this inner court, and he said there's this, he's in the temple of God, and there's this, glorified. A voice speaks, and he says, "Here's where my throne will be. Here's where soles of my feet will rest, and I will dwell among my children, forever." The children of Israel, he's talking about, but it's really all the nations, right? He's a prophet. He's Old Testament prophet. So and then we have the psalm that says, "The glory of the Lord will dwell in our land." Yeah. So there's this image of how and I was talking about General Norman Schwarzkopf. One of his quotes that I found was, he was talking about having strategy and character, and if you had to choose one, it should be character over strategy, right? So, in other words, you're, having your values, and integrity is more important than having a set, making plans to win over people and conquer people, right? It's more strategy, not strategy, but the concept of peace, of using your energy to try to come to a peaceful resolution rather than resorting to war, right? Even though he was a general and he did lead troops, in the war, it was a last resort, right? It should always be to try to come to a peaceful resolution of our problems. So that's kind of the vibe, because this psalm says, "Justice and peace shall kiss, truth shall spring forth from the earth, justice will look down from heaven." So and again, talking about the land yielding its increase, and that's what Virgo is on the horizon. It's the cusp of Virgo. Virgo is all about the harvest season. So there's this abundance, that comes with that. And if we follow, in God's footsteps, then we will, be saved. We will be led to salvation, right? So, and I think part of it is, flowing with the seasons, not resisting, but, when we go from one sign to the next, there's a shift of energy, and going from the fiery Leo to the more, gentle Virgo, kind of, it talks about the Virgin. Virgo is the Virgin, right? Mary. So it's sort of this cusp, the Leo Queen and the Virgin. So it's if you look closely at the feast days and the liturgical celebrations of the church, you don't have to go to church per se, because I let that go, and you don't have to have some celebrant, you don't need the permission or the guidance of some external, we're all recipients of Christ energy within us, and if we're open to that, that's our source, right? That's our connection. So we can channel that, and that's the big secret, right? That has come out now. That's not something that they talked about when I was a kid, but now it's, it's more known in spiritual circles that you can take responsibility for your own spiritual development. You don't need some priest or some nun or somebody, or guru or anything to tell you. You can listen to God speaking within you, and you can, maybe not everyone to the same extent, but certain, if you open yourself to it, you start on that road, then, you get better at it, right? You get more connected. So, and it starts by just listening and having quiet time every day, just to reflect, reading something that inspires you, or, watching a video that inspires you, or something, or both, having, taking up, it doesn't have to be the Bible. It could be some, I read a lot of different things, different faiths, different, Eastern, Western, writings, and all kinds of things. And of course, astrology. I try to learn something new every day. And I read about the saints' lives, because I was born on the Day of All Souls, which is day after All Saints' Day, around Halloween, where we, and it occurred to me that that's why I find the saints' lives so interesting, because they were regular people who have led very holy lives, but they were human. They had challenges, they had great obstacles that they overcame, and they can be an inspiration. So, reading about different saints is a good way to, to know how regular people, follow their own individual paths. In other words, you see that given the energy of the day, that particular saint born on that day, you can read the Sabian symbol and you can look at the life of a saint born on that day and see how they embody that energy in their particular mission in life, right? So it's interesting. That's something I've come to kind of recently. Interesting. So that's what it means by, I think, follow his steps to salvation. In other words, seeing what's in your personal astrological chart. It gives you a little bit of a guide as to what you're here to do. You there's lots of apps that can teach you, you can print out your chart. You can even go on AI, ask ChatGPT to do your chart, whatever. There's a million ways now. When I was a kid, my mom had to do it in her, she had all these charts and things, complicated signs and symbols, and I didn't know what any of it meant. And it was all mom, her secret stuff that, she wouldn't share her books with me. She would buy me beginner horoscope books, with my sun sign and stuff. But I couldn't make heads or tails. She knew that too. She knew that I'd have to come to it on my own. And then she started printing out charts and things on the computer. My dad would do it, help her with it, But she mostly just read her magazines, and she had books, that she could read, and she would do charts for people, My mother was really into astrology. But it's really only when I started going online and sort of making my little spreadsheets and things of my own. I'm much less detail oriented than my mom was. I kind of gloss and run all over. I go psst, 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 from one concept to the other. I don't go deep into one concept as much as I do sort of this. My mother used to go, now I go like this. Anyway, it's one of the things about myself that my organ teacher hated, because I would skip over things and take shortcuts, and she'd make me go and do it over and over and over and over. Go back, you missed a rest, you missed a note there, come on. Anyway, that's one of my little things that I've had to work on. It's actually one of the things I've come to like about myself, because I realized that I'm meant to gloss over a lot of things. I'm here to be a Jack or Jill of all trades. Whatever. Doesn't sound very good, does it? I'm not supposed to be like a specialist. I'm here to be a generalist. Anyway, Matthew 23, Gospel. Says, so Jesus is talking. Oh yeah. So yeah, the thing was, Jesus was. It's about hypocrisy, right? He's talking to the crowds and his disciples, and he's talking about the scribes and the Pharisees, who were like the rabbis in the temple. The ones with the robes. The ones. But these are the Jewish scribes and Pharisees. The ones, but there's an equivalent in when you go to church. I grew up going to church. I was teaching CCD. And the ones, the ones that sit in the front row, right? Every damn week they get the whole family in the front row so everybody can see them, right? We used to sit. My thing was I would sit. We would sit with the boys on. It's always on the right hand side, halfway, a little over halfway. So I liked sitting there because I could see like the whole church, and I could see, who was coming in. I could see who was in front of me and who was in back of me pretty easily. Just do one of those. So it was a good place to sit. I was much more concerned of observing, right? Because if you're in the front row, you can't see what's going on behind you. And you're so close to the front, you're just like, you could see, the priest's nose hairs. It's uncomfortable. It's like going to the movies and sitting in the front row. You're like this, you got to sit back a ways, right? You sit in the middle, a little higher up, and you could see everything, right? I'm just saying. So Jesus is saying, it's kind of like that. He's saying, those Pharisees, they're hypocrites. They take their seats. They don't. He says, observe them, and whatever they tell you, take it in, but don't follow their example. Don't listen to them. Listen to them and hear. Observe what they say, and then observe that they don't do what they say to do. In other words, they would have these, the old laws and things. He said they would put burdens on people and not help them carry the burden, not help them move. In other words, like make them observe, say, oh, you have to observe these laws, these commandments, and then not give them the means or the incentive by which they can do so. They wouldn't tell people how, in other words, they were meant to. Jesus came here. That's the difference between Jesus and these Pharisees, is that he came here to show us how to live out these rules, right? He took it a step farther than the Pharisees. And he would say, they didn't practice what they preached. So he said, look, listen, watch me. Don't watch them. Watch me. I'll tell you how to live. What to do. And after he died, and the apostles put all their, his preachings in the book, some people with not too good intentions who, wanted to rule the world, right? To have power over other people. That's where all these, hierarchical structures came into place, and the wars and the fighting and the pitting religion against religion, and that's where all that stuff, they departed so far from what Jesus was trying to say. they overcomplicated it, and they made it so people were confused and bored, and they couldn't understand the simplicity of what Jesus was saying, right? So they say that's kind of the work of Satan, right? To uh, to oppress people, to put people in little boxes that they can't get out of, right? So you only hear it here on Zazoo Plazz, on Zazoo Report. No, I'm just kidding. Well, maybe. I mean, I have a certain way of, putting it out there. So, in other words, he said, yeah, they take the seats of honor at events, right? Um, and all their works are performed, right, to be seen. Kind of like those influencers, right? They're performative. They go on and, everything they do in their life, right, is there's a camera. They don't do anything without it being on, on TikTok or Instagram, right? Not so much Facebook, but, and YouTube, but you know the type, right? And people get, sooner or later, people are going to see these influencers, who, for what they are, right? The truth will come out, and it's starting to. um, and even I don't follow any Gen Xers anymore. I don't go in any communities because I I just I used to, you know. But I find that I'd rather be put the energy that I used to expend trying to, talk to my peers and uh, you know I guess come to some sort of an agreement. I resented the fact that these, especially the more popular groups, creators, they say, oh, Gen X is like this. You're Gen X, you're like this, right? And it's really that person's own personal experience. But they get you in there and they're very persuasive and they try to make you feel like, they pit Gen X against all the other generations and they try to put you in this little box, with them and get as many as, followers as possible. And which really only benefits that one creator, right? Who gets money and gets recognition and gets to go and be fanboy, and everybody bow down and, take selfies with him or her, at this and that event. And I started smelling a rat, I said, that's bull. you know, that person isn't taking people with them. He's making them think that he cares about all, the people. But it's performative and it's divisive. So I'm not doing that anymore. You really think, Zazoo? Okay. Well, I'm just gonna put that out there. So yeah, and also people would call them, the Pharisees, rabbi, right? And Jesus says you only have one teacher. Who is Jesus, and all of you are brothers, right? So he said, you have only one Father in heaven. Don't call anyone Father, right? Or brother. He said, your master is Christ. The greatest among you must be the servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humble, or herself. So yeah, so that's it. The new communities that are the new way of teaching, spiritual teaching is going to be, it's going to be, more of a practical, get people in, push them through, get them, giving people practical ways, to follow the spiritual path. I'm hoping she doesn't come home. Okay, so the song. Let's get to the song. It's a little longer this week. Yeah, so it's Roland Orzabal from Tears for Fears. It's his 65th birthday. He was born in 1961, August 22nd. And Orzabal, yeah, he Okay, so there's a couple of songs here. The first one is Mad World. um, yeah, it's that one was the third single from their debut album, The Hurting. I guess their first international hit. It got to 1982, got to number 3 in the UK. I don't remember that one as much as Everybody Wants to Rule the World. That's a good one. But this one, the other one that I chose, the main one. And the reason for that one is he says "Happy Birthday" in the song, and he talks about a teacher, being in class and a teacher looking right through him. So there's that feeling of, uh, um, yeah, and the teacher thing, being born at the end of August, it's like back to school time. So he felt that his teacher didn't really see him in school. They're just there to be put through the system, and there's no real connection, with our teachers that we had with our teachers in school, which is interesting. And there goes my fridge. So the other song, which I had never heard, really, it's new to me. Maybe you've heard it. It's called Secrets, 1995. It was their second in U.S. second single from their 5th album, Raul and the Kings of Spain. His father was Spanish, Basque, I think. So he co-wrote the song with Alan Griffiths, and yeah, he wrote it. It was a very personal song that he wrote during a time in his life. It was having family difficulties. So he says, I won't keep secrets alive. I'll send them all out to space. Yeah, and it's so, yeah. So there's imagery in the video of a key, and that relates to tomorrow's gospel reading, where Jesus tells, it's the part in Matthew's gospel where Jesus gives Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven, and he tells them, they all say they know that he's the Christ, but he tells them to keep that a secret, right? So there's that imagery of the key. There's lyrics says he hoped humans would rise above beasts, but he gave up that hope after he had a conversation with a priest. So it all kind of fits together. And so really there's the idea of the destructive power of hidden truths in relationship, hiding things from people. And that escalates, hide little things and they become bigger things. And then it kind of all gets out, it doesn't go, it's not good. It doesn't get any better. In other words, if you start from a point of dishonesty, it only can get more dishonest, right? It festers, right? Yeah, it's like a some kind of a dis-ease, right? So I know that's a lot to take in today. I kind of went overboard, but I kind of felt like talking, so now I've earned my snack. I'll put some of the links to those readings, so if you want to read it on your own and tie it together, you can. But yeah, I don't know that very many people like to delve into these things like I do. I do delve, even though I go sort of horizontally. I do delve occasionally. If I find something that I want to look more into, I do that. Oh, now I can go do my laundry, have my leftover, later I'll have my leftover sweet and sour chicken I made yesterday with broccoli. So good. So anyway, have a great weekend. Whenever you're watching this, have a great day. And here we go into Virgo season. Take good care, and take good care of yourself, and I'll be back next week, same place, different time. Take care. Bye.